Hello, and welcome to this virtual public involvement meeting for the US 53 and US 14/61 corridor study. My name is Michael Richardson. I'm the Wisconsin DOT project manager on the study. Joining me is Jeff Sandberg from AECOM, the consultant project manager who will help answer questions at the end. Tonight, we'll start by showing a pre-recorded presentation that will provide a general summary of the study and highlight changes that have taken place since the previous PIM last summer. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period. The meeting will conclude once we stop receiving questions or by 7 p.m., whichever comes first. Please note that all participants will remain muted throughout the meeting and the chat function has been disabled. Instead, if you have questions, please submit them by emailing dot.wi.corridors@dot.wi.gov as shown on the screen. That email will continue to be shown during the presentation and after. And again, for those of you calling in on the audio only line, the email to submit questions during the meeting is dot.lax corridors@dot.wi.gov. We'll plan to answer general questions about the study during this meeting. For more specific questions like how could this impact my property, we will follow up individually after the meeting instead of answering live on air. Thanks again for attending tonight, and we will now start the pre-recorded presentation.
Thank you for attending the third and final public involvement meeting for the US 53 and US 14/61 corridor study. The purpose of this meeting is to present the recommended alternative for the study, provide an overview of changes to the alternative since the previous public meeting, and gain feedback from the public. Following this presentation, study team representatives will be available to answer your questions. We will also provide a link to a comment form where you can provide feedback. The La Crosse Major Corridor studies were approved in 2021 and are being evaluated as 4 separate corridors. The focus of this meeting and presentation is US 53 and US 14/61, shown on the map highlighted in blue. There are also 3 additional corridors as part of the La Crosse Majors, including the WIS 35 corridor shown in orange, the WIS 16 downtown corridor shown in green, and the WIS 16 corridor shown in purple. The WIS 35 and WIS 16 downtown corridors have moved into final design, while the WIS 16 corridor is still in the study phase. If you would like more information about these corridors or are interested in being involved, study information is available on the WISDOT website. The limits of the US 53 and US 14/61 corridor are from WIS 35 or West Avenue in the south to I-90 in the north, a length of approximately 4.3 miles. The scope of the study is to identify and evaluate alternatives that improve safety, traffic operations, and multimodal facilities while also addressing pavement, bridge, and utility infrastructure needs. A key component of a corridor study is the development of a purpose and need statement, which provides a concise description of the objectives of a project. The purpose and need statement for this study reads, the purpose of the US 53 and US 14/61 project is to improve the utility of the corridor for all travelers by addressing safety and traffic operations concerns, multimodal connectivity, and infrastructure conditions. The identified needs of the US 53 and US 14/61 corridor fit into 4 categories: safety, infrastructure, multimodal facilities, and traffic operations. A primary purpose of the study is safety improvement. 50% of the corridor and more than 20 corridor intersections have been flagged for safety concerns. Bicycle and pedestrian safety concerns were also identified throughout the corridor. Corridor infrastructure is another area of need, with 60% of pavement sections in need of replacement and the remainder in need of rehabilitation. In addition, 3 bridges are due for rehabilitation, and public utilities are generally in need of replacement throughout most of the corridor. Multimodal facilities were identified as an area of need, including high-stress pedestrian crossings, a lack of bicycle facility connectivity, and transit stop amenities or lack thereof. The final area of need is traffic operations, with 4 intersections exhibiting delay or backup deficiencies. Detailed alternatives were developed that meet the study purpose and need. These alternatives were presented at the last public involvement meeting and can be reviewed on the study website. The alternatives were screened using these 6 criteria to determine which alternatives best meets the study purpose and need. The screening results were used to identify a recommended alternative. Two public meetings have been held for this study. The first public meeting was held in June of 2024 and focused on the purpose and need and preliminary alternatives that were under consideration. The second public meeting was held in July of 2025 and focused on detailed alternatives, alternative screening, and a selection of a recommended alternative. Input gathered at these meetings, as well as from committees and other stakeholder coordination efforts, was used to refine alternatives and select the recommended alternative. Following the second public involvement meeting, several changes and refinements were made to the recommended alternative. These changes were a result of feedback received from the public, business owners, city committees, and the City Common Council, in addition to engineering refinement. The purpose of this public involvement meeting is to present the updated recommended alternative and to provide a summary of what has changed from the recommended alternative presented at the second public involvement meeting. Roll plot exhibits of the updated recommended alternative are available on the study website. Now we will provide an overview of the recommended alternative. It includes reconstruction of US 53 and US 14/61 from Jackson Street in the south to Clinton Street in the north. Pavement rehabilitation is planned for areas south of Jackson Street and north of Clinton Street up to Livingston Street. Spot improvements are planned throughout the corridor to address safety concerns. The recommended alternative includes adding bicycle facilities for most of the corridor by reducing the number of through lanes, narrowing through lanes, and/or removing parking lanes. 3 bridges will be rehabilitated within the corridor limits, including widened pedestrian accommodations on the 2 bridges over the Canadian Pacific Railroad near the Amtrak station. The roadway elevation of US 53 just north of the La Crosse River to Riverbend Road will be raised for flood resiliency and to maintain dry access to adjacent properties during a major flood event. In response to feedback during and since the public involvement meeting number 2, 3 areas along the corridor have seen changes. These include a change in typical section in the downtown area, a change of bicycle facility type between La Crosse Street and Monitor Street, and a revision to parking configuration between Hager Street and St. James Street. In addition to these typical section updates, a corridor-wide review of driveways and access management has been completed, and several new access management updates are proposed. We will discuss the details of these changes in the next few slides. Following the last public involvement meeting, we heard feedback on the importance of parking in the downtown area. This led to development of a new alternative in this area called the hybrid alternative. From Vine Street to La Crosse Street, the hybrid alternative includes adding sidewalk level bike lanes. This does require moving parking from one side of both 3rd Street and 4th Street. However, due to existing parking restrictions in this section, only a few parking spots will be lost. From King Street to Vine Street, the hybrid alternative includes maintaining parking on both sides of 3rd Street and 4th Street and improved pedestrian accommodations by widening sidewalk and terraces. This section would not include any bicycle facilities. While a hybrid alternative doesn't include bicycle facilities from King to Vine Street, it does improve connectivity for bicycles to downtown destinations by extending bicycle facilities to Vine Street from the north. Connections to existing parallel bicycle facilities on 2nd Street and 6th Street can be made using King Street and Vine Street. The hybrid alternative was supported by the La Crosse Common Council and has been incorporated into the study recommended alternative. The sidewalk level bike lanes included in the recommended alternative from La Crosse Street to Monitor Street were reevaluated and shared use paths were considered. Shared use paths in this constrained area were determined to reduce property impacts and allow for grass terraces, providing more space for signs and light poles. Additionally, shared use paths improve ease of travel for bicyclists, with many destinations in this area on both sides of US 53. Shared use paths are now included in the recommended alternative from La Crosse Street to Monitor Street. The previous recommended alternative in the Monitor Street to Clinton Street section removed parking from the left side of the street and added sidewalk level bike lanes on both Rose Street and Copeland Avenue. The study team heard from residents and business owners that this parking is highly utilized in the 2 blocks bounded by Hager Street and St. James Street. There are several businesses in this area and destinations like Copeland Park and Logger Stadium nearby. To address this concern, the recommended alternative has been updated to maintain parking on both sides of the street in this 2-block section and still incorporates sidewalk level bicycle lanes. The recommended alternative includes 16 driveway closures and 8 driveways with reduced access to address safety issues identified at key locations. Since the last public involvement meeting, a corridor-wide access review was completed to identify potential closures of driveways that appear to be unused, driveways that lead to nowhere, or driveways that are redundant. This review identified 43 additional potential driveway closures. All access management updates are visible on the roll plot exhibits on the study website. Notices have been sent to all property owners and tenants that may be affected by these proposed updates, and we are available to meet to discuss any resulting property impacts upon request. WSDOT will work with property owners to ensure reasonable access is provided for all properties. We appreciate your attendance at this public involvement meeting. Please visit the study website to view the updated recommended alternative exhibits. If you have any comments, please fill out the comment form using the QR code to the right by May 6, 2026. Alternatively, feel free to send any questions, comments, or requests to set up a meeting directly to Michael Richardson using this email address. Lastly, let's review the project schedule. The study phase of the US 53 and US 14/61 project is in its final stages. We are expecting to complete the environmental document in the fall of 2026, which will mark the end of the study phase. The roadway design phase of the project is scheduled to start in 2026 and will continue into 2029. Pending funding, the earliest that construction could start is 2030, but preparations for construction, including minor pavement work, could start in 2029. Again, thank you for attending this public meeting. If you have any comments, we encourage you to fill out the comment form or get in touch with the WSDOT study representative. We also encourage you to remain engaged as this study transitions into the final design stage.
Okay, at this point, we'll plan to answer any questions that came in during the presentation. You can still submit questions. Just use the DOT LAX corridors at dot.wi.gov email address on the screen. I want to mention that exhibits showing the detailed alternatives recommended to move forward, an online comment form that was mentioned, and the public meeting handout will be available for review on the study website shortly after the meeting. You can access it by using the link on the screen, the www.bit.ly/US53LAX, or you can scan the QR code. The recorded presentation will be uploaded to the website after the meeting as well. And as mentioned at the start of the meeting, we'll conclude the meeting once we stop receiving questions or by 7 p.m., whichever occurs first. So we'll wait just a minute for any questions to come in through email, and we'll answer them as they come in. Looks like we've got a few questions coming in, so we'll start looking at these. We'll start from the top here. All right, so the first question was, what is the estimated cost of this project? Do you have those, Andy?
Yeah, it looks like we're pulling up our cost estimates right now.
Just a moment.
All right, so it looks like the estimated project of the cost, the estimate total cost for the entire project is around 105 million. That is going to be broken up into several smaller projects that will be constructed over a 3 to 4 year period. But the combined cost of all of those projects together is around 105 million.
Next question here. What is the specific connectivity purpose served by this highway?
I guess maybe to start the answer to that question, generally speaking, this road has many purposes. It's a national highway system route. It's a freight route. So it has some requirements for moving traffic in that regard. It's also one of the primary connections between the interstate and downtown. So it's important in that regard as well. But it's also runs right through the busiest urban center of La Crosse. So there is a need to accommodate pedestrian traffic both along the route and crossing the route. And right now, it does not have much in the way of bicycle facilities, but that is another need that we identified, improved bicycle access along this route that we are addressing with this study as well. That's good.
The next question we got is, has there been a study on whether this needs to be a state highway? So that was not part of the scope of the study. So we're not looking at whether removing this as a state highway, and it is a connecting highway. So it's part of the national highway system. So it's If you have any more to add to that.
No, I think that covers it pretty well.
All right. And the last question we have right now is, have alternative routes for heavy truck and other traffic been considered?
I guess the broad answer to that is no, we have not looked at alternative routes for heavy truck traffic. As I mentioned before, this is on the national highway system. It's a freight route. It's also an alternative route for the interstate. So this is a route where whether or not we designate it as a freight route, trucks will be utilizing this route. So we are planning that it will continue to accommodate truck traffic and freight traffic.
Just looking to see if we've got any more questions coming in. So just a moment. We do have a couple more questions in. We're just pulling together some answers here. So just give us a moment. All right, one of the questions we have is how much would sidewalks be extended? So we're not adding any new additional sidewalks. There's already sidewalk on both sides of the road throughout the entire corridor. If the question is referring to adding width, it kind of depends on the location. So wherever we have the additional right of way, we're adding width to the sidewalk. Couple locations we're adding a couple feet to the sidewalk on the bridge overpasses over the railroad. And we are also extending the widths of the sidewalks in the downtown area from King Street to Vine Street. That includes widening of the terrace as well. So overall, I think we get out to around 13, 14 feet. The question we have is, what is the current lane width on 4th Street in the downtown area? Currently it is 42 feet, face of curb to face of curb. So these are currently two 12-foot lanes with the parking lanes, 12-foot driving lanes.
And maybe we can just add on to that, that the preferred alternative then narrows those to 11 feet. So reducing the lane width by 1 foot for each of the 2 driving lanes.
Correct. Another question, how much would parking lanes be reduced? Let's see. So if you're talking about number of spaces, in the downtown area, which is where we had the most conversation about parking, from King Street to Vine Street, we are not removing any parking. And from Vine Street to Lacrosse Street, there's only 6 to 7 spaces being lost because currently parking is restricted for a vast majority of both of those blocks on the left side of the road. So that would have been the parking that we would have been removing to make room for the sidewalk level bike lanes. So total, we're really only losing a handful of spots in that downtown area. Next question, how long can downtown businesses expect the project to last once it commences? Currently, construction is planned to last 3 years. It's planned from 2030 to 2032. But I believe the downtown section is only 2 of those 3 years. The third year would be north of the river.
And it's important to note too that in those 2 years, I think the plan is to do 3rd Street 1 year and then 4th Street the other year. So that 3rd and 4th Street will not be under construction concurrently.
Slide that answered.
So we still have a few more questions coming in, so we're working on a few more answers here in just a moment. Right. I also wanted to add a little clarity about that last parking question. If the question was referring to lane widths, we are reducing the current width of the parking lanes downtown by about 1 foot. So they will be a slightly narrower. All right, the next question, will the entire length of the project be tackled at the same time? Will 1 mile or smaller sections be constructed progressively? So no, the entire project will not happen at the same time. Like we mentioned, we have a 3-year construction plan. So let's see if you can help me out here, Jeff. I'm stumbling on this a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's without getting into the details of how it goes together, we well, construction in sections, as we mentioned, the downtown area will be constructed 2 consecutive years, and then we'll focus on areas north of the La Crosse River after that. And with that, we just wanted to mention also that WSDOT has it's called the In This Together program, where we work very closely with businesses to make sure that they're having their needs met and that we're doing our best to maintain access and working with them throughout the construction process.
The next question is, will a section of the corridor be prioritized for construction? I guess by prioritizing, we are starting in the downtown area, so that will be done first. But a lot of it has to do with construction that's happening on the other corridors as well, because we have work that's being done on 35 and then 16 after the 53 project. So we're working closely with those other studies to make sure that we're not impacting more than one river crossing, since there's only those 3. So that's, I guess, a complicated way to answer that question. We are prioritizing, but it's based on a lot of different moving parts and trying to make sure that, again, we're only impacting certain parts of each of these corridors at the same time. Next question, are there any other roundabouts considered along with the one at La Crosse Street? No, we are actually not considering any other roundabouts. We did look at one up near the Clinton Street intersection, but it was far too impactful, resulted in several relocations of businesses. So not currently looking at any other roundabouts except for the one at La Crosse Street.
Maybe the next one's related here as well. The question was a roundabout considered at the River Point, across from the River Point at River Bend Drive, and to expand on that, no, we were not considering a roundabout there for the same reasons that Michael just mentioned.
Still got questions coming in, working on a couple more answers here, so it's just a moment. All right, next question. During construction downtown, if Third Street is closed 1 year and Fourth Street closed another, would traffic go to two-way traffic on whatever street remains open, or would traffic get rerouted down Second Street, going one way, and Third or Fourth Street, whichever is open, going the other? All right, so currently, we are considering a detour, but could also do bi-directional traffic. So that is something that will probably be decided more as we get into design and get more information about the utilities that need to be replaced and so on. There's a lot going on downtown. So we do have a prep project plan for 2029 in case we do need to do bi-directional traffic to handle that extra loading. But like I mentioned, we're still kind of working through that decision. So, but if we are detouring traffic, I think our official detour would probably go 16 to 35 to stay on state routes, because we would have to work out something with the city to detour on local streets. But also wanted to mention that, as this project moves into the design phase, there will still be public involvement meetings as you get further into the details. So there's still opportunity to provide feedback on these types of things. No, we don't have any further questions right now, so we'll stick around here for, another 5 minutes or so and see if any more questions come in. So we'll hang tight here for a few more minutes. Let us know if you got more questions. We're still not seeing any more questions, but I think we'll leave it open for 5 more minutes. We'll plan to stop the meeting at 6:45 unless we receive further questions in the next couple minutes. And again, I just want to reiterate that now is not your last opportunity to provide questions or comments. You can always email me at michael.richardson@dot.wi.gov. It looks like we did get another question here. Just working on an answer, just a moment. All right, here, the next question is any money being used to improve the greenways of King Street and Vine Street to connect to downtown? Since these are local streets, no majors funding is not used for improving these streets. This money will only be used for the state route improvements. I do want to clarify though that we are looking at how these greenways cross 53. So that it was kind of one of the reasons that we chose the extents of the maintaining the parking downtown from King Street to Vine Street, because those are planned by the city to be used as connections in the future. Since we did still get questions, I think we'll extend it another few minutes, so we'll aim to close at 6:50 unless we get more questions. It looks like we got another question, just working on an answer here. All right, so next question is, when the interstate project occurred a few years ago, there was beautification dollars that made the Eagle Watch possible. Will there be beautification dollars available and how would they be allocated? All right, so there are beautification dollars. This is considered a community sensitive design, or CSD, and that there are funds available. It's, I believe, up 1.5% of the construction cost. And that is an 80-20 split between the project paying for that and the city paying for that. So 1.5% of the construction project that can be used for these beautification dollars, if you will. So street art, trees, those types of things, wayfinding for bikes. There's several different things. So that would it's ultimately like up the city how they spend that money, but they do work with the stakeholders and the community to come up with ideas for that. All right, not seeing any more questions, but again, we'll extend here just a few more minutes. So look to end at 6:55. All right, we still don't have any more questions, so we're gonna wrap it up here in just a minute. So. All right, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for coming to the meeting and have a good night. Bye.